What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Fly to the End, and welcome to a video that I've been wanting to do for a while now. Ever since I saw the very first boss fight that they revealed for Spider-Man PS4, I wanted to do this video not because I wanted to make fun of Spider-Man, because I'm crazy excited for the game. It comes out 3 days as of now, whenever I'm recording this. But I wanted to talk about it because this game, whenever I saw the very first boss fight, I thought, it had this strange, almost, it seemed way too easy. If you see the gameplay, maybe it's because of the difficulty, and I'm just nitpicking right now. But to me, I honestly feel like it wasn't maybe what people were expecting. Obviously the game has reviews now and is getting 9s and 10s all over the board, and I as a Spider-Man fan, I'm crazy excited. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound like that. I'm a little tired right now. But legitimately, I wanted to talk about why boss fights in video games are usually pretty disappointing. Now, I want to start this off by, this is probably going to become a tangent, and I apologize. I'll try and, catch myself every once in a while. But my very first example of boss fights being disappointing would be one of my all-time favorite video games being Borderlands 2. I mean, the whole Borderlands franchise is one of my favorites of all time. But the Handsome Jack boss fight. Now, as a whole, obviously the boss fight after it is a billion times better because you're fighting the vault monster and everything. By the way, I'm gonna be spoiling some games, so if you don't want to hear it, I'll probably leave it down in the description what games I'm gonna be talking about. But Handsome Jack, the entire game, he was making fun of you. He's cracking jokes. He was he told you to kill yourself a few times, and he was such an asshole, but he was a lovable asshole. Someone that, you wanted to fight him at the end and it be something fantastic. And what ended up happening was, if you were like me and whenever you played it the first time, you actually did the side missions alongside the story missions. So that made you end up being over leveled whenever you got to that boss fight. And seeing how I was playing as a Salvador, I completely tore this man's asshole apart. I had the Unkempt Herald, and at the time the Grog was not even existing, so I just had a little ruby, and I completely shit on this man, and it was pretty fantastic, and at the time I didn't really think much of it. Oh, hey, we took down Handsome Jack. Technically you didn't kill him, but you kill him after the vault monster. But still, that boss fight, now looking back at it, was so unfulfilling. It didn't feel right. I mean, granted, I guess that's okay, because the next game let you play as him and stuff, and you played alongside him, you were best friends with him basically, and that was great. That was honestly, that was a lot of fun. But if you go back and look at it, it's not the best boss fight. And then you level up to games like Dark Souls, where their boss fights are beautiful. There's gorgeous music playing, and the boss fights are usually, I mean, not all of them, but usually they're pretty tough. Usually Dark Souls bosses can make you rage. You'll throw your controller down a few times, you'll give up a few times, but you'll come back and you'll finally beat that boss, and you'll just feel so much euphoria. You'll have the biggest smile on your face, and you'll feel like you just fucking climbed a mountain, and you feel good inside. Your heart will start beating, and everything just feels right. But then you drop down to games like God of War, not the new one. I'm talking about the older ones. Now, granted, these are still fantastic games. The boss fights are really fucking cool, but that's the thing. They're cool. They're not great boss fights in a technical standpoint. You're not 1v1ing giant ass monsters. You're doing button prompts that make the entire fight cinematic. which there's nothing wrong with that. I love boss fights like that. The new God of War game, that thing did it so perfectly. The boss fights felt fun, but at the same time, they were, there was no real quick time events, but the boss fights felt fun, but they were crazy cinematic, and that's really good. But then we go back to Spider-Man, where the Shocker boss fight and the Kingpin boss fight, they don't really have any of that. I mean, of course they have the cinematic, a little cutscene right at the beginning before you fight the boss, but everything after that just feels like it was way too easy, like it was made for a child. Now, obviously, I haven't even played the game yet, so I have no idea. Usually I like playing games like these on the hardest difficulty, so maybe whenever I play on that, I'm gonna die a shit ton, and I welcome that. But from looking from the outside in, it looks like the boss fights in this game may be disappointing, and I want people to understand that boss fights in video games can be disappointing, and it's not going to be a first, it's not going to be the last. You go back and you play something like Final Fantasy, where you're fighting giant ass monsters, or something like Devil May Cry. You're fighting these massive monsters, but you feel too powerful sometimes. You feel like whenever you're beating them, you just did it in a snap of a finger. But then you go back to Dark Souls. It takes a struggle. And, I don't want to dick ride Dark Souls, but that whole genre of video games just know how to do boss fights. I mean, granted, maybe the difficulty might be too much for some people and they don't even get to some boss fights. But that's the beauty of those games. And that's, hey, I'm not trying to tell anybody not to buy Spider-Man. I'm not telling you that any of these games suck. Actually, all of these games besides Final Fantasy, I played them all. I mean, I know it's kind of dumb that I've never played Final Fantasy, but I want people to understand that what I'm prefacing all this off of is my all-time favorite boss fight, okay? A lot of people are going to be like, what the hell? That's like the most random boss fight. But Saints Row 3, where you fight the nerdy dude, the guy that's the owner of the Blue Gang. I forgot his name at the top of my head, but his whole boss fight where you're in the giant robots, it was, you felt powerful, but at the same time, it was cinematic because you were in giant robots and you were whipping this kid's ass. But at the same time, I did die to that boss quite a few times because I was playing on a harder difficulty than maybe I should have been at the time. I died a bunch, and to me that was just a really memorable boss fight. And I don't know, I feel like if video games could give you that perfect amount of strength but still make the boss strong enough to not get completely like face palmed, you would enjoy a game a lot better whenever it comes to boss fights. Now, obviously, Spider-Man is going to be a good game. I'm not going to tell you that the boss fights are going to be the worst of all time, okay? The boss fights are obviously going to be, some of them may be memorable, but from what I've seen, again, I feel like the boss fights are not what I wanted them to look like, I guess, and I feel like that's really, really negative. But, I just wanted people to understand that boss fights in video games can be disappointing, okay? And I feel like if people get that in their head before they play games, not just Spider-Man, but before they play new games that involve things like boss fights, then they won't be as disappointed when it comes down to it. So if you enjoyed this, hit that like button and do subscribe, and tell me down in the comments if you want me to do more videos like this where I just spit out my opinion. Obviously, this might get a little bit of hate, and I'm okay with that. This is my first time ever doing a video like this, but if you feel the same way and or you want me to keep doing videos like this, obviously hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.